Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is child sexual abuse and domestic violence. And we're happy to have with us two directors to talk about these as two very, very important issues this morning. Ms. Dolores Butler. Ms. Butler is the director of the Children's, Youth, and Family Division at the Lord Elam Mental Health Center at Meharry Medical College. And Ms. Susan Cannon is the director of PEACE, P-E-A-C-E, in Nashville. And let me welcome both of you ladies to the show this morning.
Thank you.
Before we get started with the areas that the two of you would like to deal with, let's talk about the two of you and say something about your background and your education. Now, some of the things that perhaps led you, Ms. Butler, to the position that you're in now, and after that, Ms. Cannon, some of the things that led you to the directorship of the organization. Let's start with you, Ms. Butler.
Okay. Well, I obtained a master's degree from University of Tennessee in Knoxville in social work. And while there in that community, I did some volunteer work and really did a field placement with the Department of Human Services. And so after I completed my school assignments, I was hired with the Department of Human Services. And I guess my first job assignment, I can still remember, it dealt with a family where there was some abuse involved, and it was an African-American family. And I guess from that time, I worked in investigation for the Department of Human Services for 6 years, and I really dealt with child sex abuse. Leaving Department of Human Services, going over to Meharry, to the Mental Health Center, I went to work in a child sex abuse project. They had just received a new grant just to work on this issue. And from that, and I've been there for 10 years now, and I've been directing this children's program for 8 years. So I've got 16 years of experience of working in this field in particular. I work with the victims as well as people who victimize children.
Very good. And so you're going to give us all of that information this morning in terms of that experience and some of the things that you know. The same thing will be true with you, Ms. Cannon. Why don't you give us the same kind of overview in terms of your involvement with PEACE?
I have an undergraduate degree in social work and a master's in ethics from Vanderbilt Divinity School. And 10 years ago, I began working after my master's degree here in Davidson County and working in the area of social services. I'm not ordained, even though I've had a divinity school education, but have been really drawn to work with offender populations. And for 5 or 6 years, I worked with those individuals who either were going into prison or coming out of prison. And for the last 5 years, I've worked with the offender population of those perpetrators of domestic violence, as well as working with the victims in our agency.
And so both of you bring to the show a wealth of information dealing with these two very, very important subjects. And what we'd like to do today is to talk about these two subjects, but to try to show the relationship between the two of the areas. And we wish to do that by having you, first, Ms. Butler, to give us some information about an overview of child sexual abuse in this country. And for you, Ms. Cannon, to listen to what she has to say about that and to apply the kind of information that you have dealing with domestic violence to the things that she's given us. And then we'll do the same thing with you and domestic violence. We want to do that to show the relationship between these two. First of all, Ms. Butler.
Okay. I guess the child sex abuse is on the rise as far as reporting. We don't think that it's on the rise as far as incidents. But because there's so much information out now, there's a lot being talked about, a lot of programs such as this, more people are aware of there are places that you can get help. I don't have to just sit and be silent and talk about it. So for that reason, that's one reason in a way that it's a lot being reported, and it's a lot for people to deal with now in the mental health field, as well as the field of investigating in the criminal justice field and so forth. And there are children that get a lot of information in school also. So it's a big problem in this country as well as this state and this city. We have a problem.
Now, when you talk about that, who are you talking about? Certainly we know you're talking about children, but when you talk about those who are abused and the abusers and et cetera within that framework, who are you talking about?
We're talking about children from the age of 3 months on up to 18 years old, and it has nothing to do with racial lines, with economic lines. It cuts across all those things. There's nothing in particular, there's nothing that says if you're this race, you're going to be sexually abused. If you're this race, if you're this economic, we have people who are professional people who are abusing their children, lawyers. I've worked with people who are doctors, and it doesn't matter who it is, can abuse their children.
Ms. Cannon, domestic violence, and I think she's already indicated some of the characteristics of some of the things that you're going to tell us, but go speak to that.
Certainly the case, it's the case that with regard to the problem of domestic violence, it cuts across all racial, economic, religious lines completely. I mean, that is really a fact that we know. Domestic violence is just now sort of coming out of the closet. It's only been within the last 5 to 10 years that throughout the United States, the court system has taken this problem seriously. It is now truly regarded as an offense, a crime to be violent in your home, whereas previously it was not. It was sort of viewed as what happens in one's home is their private business. That's a private matter, not a public matter. And so I think that the whole issue of victims coming forward to get the help they need through the criminal justice system has been proven as that system begins to take this issue much more seriously.
Now, is there a pattern when you talk